Welcome to the RAG Podcast, the weekly show where I interview recruitment owners who are prepared to tell their unique story of growth. This is all in aid of helping future and existing recruitment businesses who are looking to do similar things. Now, growth means different things to different people. So by tuning in every week, you're no doubt going to find information that's relevant to you. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the RAG Podcast. On this week's show, I'm joined for the first time by someone who's unemployed. So, I always interview founders and leaders of recruitment firms. This guy, Kevin Frater, is an absolute legend. This guy was at the Frank Group. Most people know Nigel Frank, that became the Frank Group, for over 10 years and left in January of 2023. He started off in a role where he was doing like client development, having spent 4.5 years with the Allegis Group, and then he became a fixer. This guy would go to different offices and effectively turn them around. First was London, then was Singapore, and then he spent 6 years in Germany, where he walked into a team of 12 recruiters, and 6 years later left with over 180 staff, with one of the highest performing teams in the Frank Group globally. And he went through 2 events with the Frank Group where he made a lot of money, and he finished up at the start of this year to take some time out before he goes into his next opportunity. And he is going to be looking to join it looks like he's going to be looking to join a firm as opposed to launch his own business. So in this episode, we got into the detail of turning around underperforming sales teams or recruitment teams. We talked about his ability to let others do the hard graft, but what it took to be a true leader behind the scenes so that people could flourish. We talked about international travel, the challenges personally and professionally, and balancing everything in between. But we also talked about the growth, the rapid growth, and what it takes to go from 12 to 180. So if you're a recruitment manager or recruiter that wants to get into recruitment management and grow your career by being behind the scenes, this is going to be an amazing episode. But also if you're a recruitment business in need of a recruitment director, someone who's going to run the business and take international operations and drive a really scalable, repeatable model, then again, listen to this because he might be your guy. And if he isn't your guy, he's going to teach you a lot in the process. So without further ado, Kev, welcome to the RAG Podcast.
Super. Thank you, Sean. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, we finally got here. When did we speak about this? Was it about a month or 2 ago?
Oh, God. It was a couple of months ago, wasn't it, at least? Maybe March time, something like that. Yeah, I was bored at home, just playing around.
So yeah, I've done you a little introduction, but it never does it justice, Kev. Do us a favor, for the listeners' benefit, just give us a little bird's eye view of who you are right now, and then we're going to go back and tell your story.
Yeah, sure. So ultimately, name's Kevin Frater, 39 years of age. As you guys can probably tell, I'm from the northeast of England. Yeah. And I've spent my career, the last 16 and a half years, working in recruitment.
Yep.
Firstly with the Allegis Group down in London. So I did 5 years with the Allegis Group, and then the last 11 years with the Frank Recruitment Group.
Yeah. And how would you say your last role was with the Frank Group? Like, what was your final position?
So the last 6 years were spent in Germany, starting out in Berlin, but I worked my way across the country to the likes of Cologne and Frankfurt, setting up operations over there. And it was an absolute blast. I loved it. I was only supposed to be there 6 months, Sean, and then ended up in there 6 years. So
you were meant to launch a German presence, and you grew it to what was the headline numbers you grew that?
In the end, in Germany alone, I think we had 170 to 175 heads, something like that. Then there was a further 50 to 60 people over in Switzerland, although I can't take any credit for that. There was someone else who kicked that on to the size it is. I looked after Switzerland when I very first started. I had a handful of people doing that, but the business found someone on the ground in Switzerland who could get that to the next level. So yeah, that was that. 170, 180 heads, something like that in Germany.
Do you speak any German?
A little bit. Not enough.
Geordie German. A bit of Geordie German.
Yeah, imagine that. I'm told my German accent's actually very good.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there you go. But
I always think Scousers sound a bit more German. They got a lot of ich in the things they say, and they've got like a German twang, so they should be good at it. I don't know about Geordies. But look, Kev, the reason I wanted to interview you is like the Frank Group's one of those brands, right? I haven't interviewed the founder. I hope we will one day.
Yeah.
But
it's a story I've not told from any, I'm not told from any direction. And they're a business that the industry, respects and knows, and everyone knows. When I landed in London in 2012, actually, I had 3 job offers. A company called Venquist, a company called GCS, who I've also had on this show, and Nigel Frank International were
really?
my offers. Yeah, and
remember who you interviewed with back then?
I think it was a West Ham fan in London. I'm sure his surname was, I forget his name now. It was Andy or something. I don't know. He's a really good lad. Maybe Alex, maybe Andy. Really good lad. He was on King Street, I think, in London, in the city. And the role was to recruit internationally, like Microsoft Dynamics internationally, sat on with a headset on. And at that age, and I wanted to be out and about meeting people in London, so I turned it down. But the success of the guys in the office, I remember thinking, wow, if that's true, some absolute monster billers. A guy called Ben, who I don't know his full name, but he was sat in the room and they were like, yeah, that guy bills £1 million. And I was like, he looked like, looked like butter wouldn't melt, but clearly did something right. So you finished up. When did you finish up with the Frank Group?
I finished up with FRG at the end of Jan of this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are you not there now?
It just felt like time to move on. I've been there, like I said, 10 and a half, 11 years. I'd promised my fiance and the family I'd make this my last year in Germany. I'd said that about 3 times now. And it just felt like the right time to move on, do something a little bit different. I'm not going to lie to you. Looking at the macroeconomic climate, I did think, this is a good time to take a year off. So
really? Yeah. And you'd obviously... And you'd realize some benefits, right? There was an element of, did they go through an event that you managed to get, you had shares involved and you managed to realize some money from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first came on board, not long after that, Sean Frank Wadsworth, which is where the name comes from. He was the original founder along with Nigel O'Donoghue. Sean did his first transaction, I think it was around 2012 with Living Bridge. Who were formerly known as ISIS, believe it or not.
Right.
So very quickly changed their names for obvious reasons. But first transaction was with Living Bridge, so I got a small part in that. And then more recently, there was a sale to TPG in 2016. Mm-hmm. So two big events for the company, and lots of beneficiaries. So
and that must give you a cushion, I suppose, to take a decision like this and take some time out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair to say the bulk of that money that I recognised out of the 2016 deal went into my property investments in the Northeast. So we talked about this before. I've got 16 properties that we have as a side business, so that helps pay the bills and keep things ticking over. And I FRG in particular changed my life from a financial standpoint. So put me in a nice position to take some time out. So here we are.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we'll get into all this. So take us back then to the... I want to focus on the Frank Group. I think it's fair to talk about Allegis.
Yeah.
What's the story there then? How did you get into that business?
With Allegis or with FRG?
With Allegis.
With Allegis. So how did I arrive with Allegis? Do you know what? I actually was up at university in Newcastle with a mate of mine who I went through university with. He's now the MD of 20AI down in London.
Right.
You might know 20AI. I think you might have engaged with him in the past.
What's the guy's name?
James Warren.
Yeah, I met James about a year ago on Zoom. Yeah, good lad.
Yeah, top lad. So, at university with James, we were approaching the end of our sort of final year. Neither of us had a job lined up at that stage. And we thought, right, we're going to have to do something about that. So I think we were in the library one morning or on our way to university one morning, and James recognised that there was a careers fair taking place down at Manchester MEN Arena. Would it have been called that back then?
It would have been then. It's not anymore. But it would have been called the MEN.
So we essentially bunked off university, skipped our lectures, drove down to Manchester to go to this careers fair. And James found his, I found the Allegis Group. And they basically said, look, fellas, we want to hire you. You know, both the conversations were very, very similar. They wanted to hire us, pick your office, where do you want to go in Europe? And
in a careers fair, did you have like a full-on interview and shit? Like it wasn't just
no. Sorry, that came the week after. So initial conversation, interview at the careers fair, follow up the week after.
Did you have to go back down to Manchester then? or did you do
Yeah,
it in
it was.
Newcastle?
Where was the office then? That was in Altrincham, I think.
Right. Okay.
Is that right? Just opposite the train
Yeah.
station. Big old grey building. I don't know if it's still there.
Right. I know Altrincham. I don't know it that well, but I know it. I grew up near it. So you go back down to Altrincham, you get the job with Allegis, and they say go wherever you want in Europe.
Yeah, we want to hire you. Where do you want to base yourself out of? Yeah.
Have you finished uni at this point?
I'd finished uni at this point. Yeah, exactly. James the same. Hayes had a mirror image conversation with him, and we were both young, single at the time. We said, you know what, let's go to London. If we don't do it now, we probably never will. So we headed down, found a cheap flat in Shepherd's Bush, on the Hammersmith and City line, which was easy for me to get around to Farringdon, which is where the Allegis Group office was, and that was it. There we go.
How old were you at the time? About 22 or so?
22, 23, 22.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So.
And how did your careers go? Because he's at Hayes and you're there. How did the trajectory go?
Again, it was identical. I remember us both doing our first deal at the same time. We both got our first promotion at the same time. Both got put into leadership at the same time. It was really, really weird. I think our first deals came within a week of each other's. First promotion.
Was he in a similar market?
No, he wasn't. James was in finance, and I was in IT. I was, punting out developers and BAs and project managers and all this sort of stuff into Canary Wharf and into the city. And, he was doing his finance gig. So career paths, very, very similar. Both, I would say, successful. I loved Allegis. It was a great, great company. Completely obsessed about customer service. And that's what won me at the careers fair. Just how they talked about their candidates and clients. Yeah, they're American, right? They're huge in America. Big on customer service, and it was a company that made you feel cared about and wanted and valued. And I thought, right, great place to start my career, and I just kept running with it. Really, fond memories. Met Jim Davis at one point. Wow. Jim Davis was the founder along with Steve Bisciotti.
I thought you were going to say Jim Davidson. I thought you were
going to not Jim Davidson. No,
snooker. You're going to play some snooker. Never. John Berger, he's a fan.
That kind of epitomizes the company, I think. This fella's a billionaire. He's got a company at the time, I think, 8,000 employees.
Wow.
Revenue well into the billions, $7-8 billion a year in revenue. And he was taking the time out to go meet people like me, So I thought, what a great message.
Yeah, you don't get there accidentally, do you? Like, it's those behaviors that people do that separate them, right? Amazing. Yeah. So okay, so you're there for 4 years or so. So let's say you're 26 at the time-ish. What happened next? And did you and James still live together at this point?
Yeah, James and I were still living together at this point. We actually bought our first property together down in London, down in New Cross. Right. So we moved from the west to the east. Just went down to New Cross. This was just before the Olympics. Yeah, we knew the Olympics were coming. Let's try and make an investment, get on the property ladder, all that sort of stuff. Seemed like a good move at the time. And it was, ultimately it was the right thing to do. After 4.5 years, I met my now fiance, Natalie, when I was getting one of my last haircuts up in the northeast. I'd got home to visit my parents.
Right.
And, she was working in a salon. I was getting my head buzzed there, and we got talking, and the rest is history.
So what did that do then? It made you wanted to go back to Newcastle?
Well, yeah. Before that, I had a long distance relationship before that with a girl who was in Manchester, and I was up in Newcastle. And I thought, I'm not going to do another long distance relationship again. And my parents were getting on at the time. I could see them needing more help around the house and all of this sort of stuff. And it just felt like the right time to go back.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd probably still be there now, right? So headed back up.
Did James stay in the house that you two owned, and you?
Yeah,
left?
Exactly. James stayed in London. And he's still there now, actually. He's ironically just moved back to Shepherd's Bush, right around the corner from where it all started. Yeah.
Wow.
So
do you still own the house?
Big 5-bed house. Beautiful.
Do you still own the property you bought originally?
James does. I sold my half to James.
Right.
When I went back up, so, yeah.
That's brilliant. That's good. Great story. So then why did you go and join the Frank Group? They are pretty much the dominant player in Newcastle, I believe. But... Yeah,
absolutely. They are. They still are, and they were at the time, I think, just starting to make a name for themselves in Newcastle. And ultimately, it was Sean. It was his story from back in the S3 days that won me over. and made me think I've got to join that business. You know, it's exciting. If even just half of what this fella is trying to achieve comes to fruition, it's going to be a great place to be. So yeah, I joined the business. I was in a pure business development capacity at the time. So they had a really, really broad client base at Nigel Frank and at the rest of the group. But we weren't very good at the time with repeat business, retaining clients, and any of this sort of stuff. So my role, and this also appealed to me, it was an international role, was designed to tie those clients up. You know, get clients from the US, Europe, UK, and Asia Pacific region talking to each other, and making sure that we retain them, and we work on the penetration of those relationships. So that was my first role for, how long did that last? 9, 12 months, something like this.
Managing a team, or just?
No, I was just there individually, doing my thing. But my boss at the time was obviously quite happy with what I was doing. The company was trying to grow really aggressively from a headcount standpoint, as FRG always has. And I had previous management experience from London. So he just started chucking a bit of headcount my way, like, what can you do with this, Kevin? What can you do with that? Can you look after this team? Can you grow that? And yeah, before I knew it, I had sort of 15, 20 people reporting into me after about a year and a half. So that was pretty cool. And then, yeah, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, look, can you come for a chat in my office? And I remember walking to his office behind him thinking, oh, shit, what have I done? What's happened here? And he said, look, I need you to go to London. We've run into a couple of challenges in the contract office, and I'd really like your help, and so on and so forth. So the very next day, I found myself on a train back to London, ironically, to start working with the contract team there. So
how did that go down with your partner and your family and all the reasons you went back to Newcastle?
It was all right, because I was essentially going down Monday to Thursday, right? I was only there 3 nights, 4 nights, some weeks. But yeah, that was I think still is the toughest job I had in my career, turning that one around, because yeah,
so
they ran into some problems.
What did you walk into?
So the previous two managers from that department had moved on in fairly quick succession, and I think the culture wasn't quite right in the office at the time. The guys down there, great bunch of people, like really, really top people, had lost their way a little bit. There was a bit of a distrust between them and the business, and yeah, so it was a big job. And I think me coming from the northeast down to London, that didn't sit particularly well with them. And yeah, my way of doing things, shall we say, was a little bit different to theirs. Because I had 5 years with Allegis. They operated through a 180 model. They were absolutely obsessed with customer service and things like that, whereas FRG were just out there slinging CVs and trying to get to market first, which was probably the right thing to do. So yeah, so we had a bit of a clash of styles at first, but yeah, after a couple of months, managed to turn that around, and yeah, it went really well at the end.
Let's go into a bit more detail then. So what you walk in, how many people are there?
Oh God, let's say 14, 15 heads at the time.
All right, and what level of people are we talking?
Mixture. You had a couple of TLs, you had a couple of consultants, principal consultants, TRCs, nothing major. Fairly small office off Fenchurch Street. Yeah. Right.
And what was the signs that they were underperforming? Like, what was happening? That obviously there's a bit of distrust, but what was the issue?
Well, just all of the typical sort of signs, Sean. Numbers were low, productivity was low, people weren't using the system as much as they probably should have been. High number of leavers relative to the size of the team. Yeah, you can just see that people weren't doing the right things at the right time, So yeah.
And how long have you been with the business at this point?
So at this point, I'll have been with the business approximately 18 months, something like that.
So you know how Frank Group works.
I know how Frank Group works.
You also got more experience at Allegis. So did you try and adopt to the Frank Group way of working, or try?
Yeah, I had to. If I didn't, I would never have survived, because trying to change the Frank Group's culture was going to be an impossible task. Sean had his way of growing the business. Super smart fella. Like, he's brilliant. He's one of the best. And for me to go into FRG and think I can do it differently in there would be wrong of me. So I had to adapt using some of the skills that I picked up at Allegis around customer service and how to tie relationships together and all of that sort of stuff. So
what did you actually do then? Let's go, if you can remember. And the reason I'm asking this is a really common problem, you know, whether or not you start your own recruitment company, you come off the tools a bit, you turn around, your business is underperforming, you're like, fuck, I need to turn this around. Or you're moving into new organizations. This is so common. So I want to get some practical examples for people and advice. So you walked in underperforming for the reasons you've said. What did you do?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I did was, try to invest time in understanding what the problems were. Yeah. I didn't dwell on that for too long. I listened to the guys, made sure that, they felt I was there and they were able to come and talk to me. And then from that point, I set about building a bit of a vision for the team. So trying to say to them, listen, this is where we are now, right? But we're all in it together. Things are not going how we want them to go, but, we can get to here if we want to. But it's got to start by being honest. We've got to be honest with each other. What do you like? What do you not like? Yeah. What do you like about me? What do you not like about me? What's working well for you with your clients, your candidates, all of that sort of stuff. Just had a completely brutally honest conversation with them to kind of get the elephant out of the room a little bit. So we did that. And then
what did they say about you?
Sorry, say again?
What did they say about you?
Only good things, of course, Sean. Only good things.
They didn't have anything they didn't like?
I can't remember. If I'm completely honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. But there'll have been something at the time. Do you know what I mean? It would have been, what do you know about running the contract division or something like this? Yeah. But anyway, had those honest conversations, and then I think the next thing that I did was just to celebrate the small things. Always got to lead from the front, right? But celebrate the small things, such as picking up job leads, setting interviews, all that sort of stuff, and start to show people a bit of appreciation for any amount of success that they had, no matter how small it was. And it became quite infectious. The guys sort of sat up a little bit, started to take note, and they enjoyed getting a bit of praise. And we had a couple of wins here and there. And the next thing it just started to snowball. We fixed the relationship with the perm counterparts because there wasn't much interaction going on between perm and contracts. So we sorted that out, got the guys talking again. And before you know it, it was record after record after record. We got them over 100 runners for the first time, onto 150 runners. And it just snowballed and it went well. And
you didn't have any involvement in the market? You weren't doing the client side? You weren't jumping on candidates' calls or any of that?
A little bit on the client side, because, like I said, you got to lead from the front, roll your sleeves up, try and help them, do the hard yards. So I did a bit of that, winning jobs and projects. But no, it was mainly down to them. I think a lot of what I did and the benefit that I added was kind of behind the scenes, just getting people to do the right things at the right times. And that was it.
When you say helping with the client side as well, I imagine someone else booked the meeting, and they were like, what did you in from a weight perspective? Like, we got a director.
Exactly that. Yeah.
So you're not running BD yourself. You're just saying, look, I'm here and I'll join you.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
This is the bit I think I've always been bad at, and I think a lot of recruitment leaders have been bad at, is like you become that superhero manager where you jump in and you take action and you make things happen.
Yeah.
You're not allowing other people to fail and to grow. And I think that was my biggest weakness was I don't think I was ever good at what you're saying you're good at, where you could actually sit behind it and let others win. I was I wanted to, but my style was like, I'll fix that, I'll sort that, I'll jump, I'll show you. But then people never develop fast enough, I don't think.
I don't think you could operate that way at FRG, because the headcount started to come thick and fast. Once we'd stabilized the office and the guys got back to basics and they started to have some success again, the pressure was then on to get some headcount into the business. So in terms of, getting involved in every call, every client, every opportunity, impossible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a bit unusual, and I would have preferred sometimes to, be in more control, but you kind of just got to let them get on with it and learn from their own mistakes, right? It's the quickest way we learn, through doing and making mistakes.
And what were the metrics you were looking at to know you were going in the right direction back then, and probably took with you throughout your whole career?
It's the same thing, I guess everyone looks at, right? It's leads, jobs, and interviews. That's it. It's the interviews that get us the money, right? So, don't worry about what deals you put up last month. Just worry about the interviews you're going to set in the next 24, 48 hours. Yeah. And that's it. And every behavior should go towards feeding that. And
that's it. And that's
it. And I had a similar sort of story with Asia Pacific. Yeah. So when I went out to there, I guess we'll come on to that in a minute. But the message is exactly the same. It's, the money sits in and around the interviews, right? The more of them you have, the more deals you're going to do.
But what about all the work that goes into getting the interviews? There's a lot of work that goes into that. So is that where all your training comes into play?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where you've got to sit down, make sure that the processes are tight, make sure that the quality of leads are there, make sure that they're speaking to the right people. So you've got to invest time in getting into the database, make sure they're not too low down the food chain, not too high up. They've got to, do you know what I mean? There's a few things that go into that. As long as you're getting good leads, whether it be from candidates or any other sources, you're genuinely doing BD when you're supposed to be doing BD. Now that was a long time ago, ironically, because we had another conversation about this, didn't we? But if you're doing BD when you're supposed to be doing BD, you should, in theory, be productive and you should be winning business every day, right? I think it's too easy, especially now, for people to have a little bit of success. I've pulled a job and then they get up, they have a walk around the office to tell their mates about it. Do you know what I mean? Then I'll have a little look over here and just see if I have got any candidates for it. Do you know what I mean? And before you know it, the rest of the people on the call list don't even hear from you that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt, because I am going back quite a long time. The world's changed since then, but
I think the same principles still apply. So how did you get people focused then? So what was your strategy to ensuring that people didn't go and do that? And I know I'm guilty of that one. Like, I've done something good and it's like, I'm up, I'm out, I'm having 10 minutes to myself, I'm celebrating, and you've lost momentum.
Yeah, I think you've got to make sure people understand what the good and the bad looks like. Take the time out to understand what it is that they want to achieve personally, what they want to achieve professionally. Map out what do we need to get there. There's your red line. Okay, if we're doing any less than that, it's not so good. If we're doing more than that, we're great. We're all happy, and off we go. And then you wrap that around with a lot of positivity, high fives, hugs, beers, thank yous, well dones, some awards, and some praise. And the next thing you know, it just becomes really, really infectious. And yeah, that's what they want to do.
You make it sound so easy, Kev.
Say again?
You make it sound too easy, Kev.
I do, don't I? Yeah.
Maybe that's your skill set, right? Most people,
Maybe.
being a recruitment manager is got to be one of the hardest jobs in the industry, right? Billing manager is a nightmare when you're trying to do both.
Yeah.
And not every business will go to management. Like literally, at my last podcast, as a guy who Hanover Group, and they're really flat structure, and even as a CEO, he's still got a bit of a billing target, right?
Yeah.
So there's some organizations that don't believe in management. They just believe in everyone's still a revenue generator. And it's about coaching and leading. And then there's other businesses like the Frank Group and Faden. And to be honest, the ones that have grown real headcount, they typically have different levels. And there's a bit of a hierarchy. And there's people like you that, because you're constantly dealing with that inflow of new starters, trainees as well, not even experienced people. Yeah, you haven't got the time to do everything.
Yeah, I think that's it, Sean. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's the FRGs and the Fadens of this world that it makes it really difficult to lead and bill when you've got that constant stream of new people coming through. Without that, you can justify it. But
what was their methodology around internal recruitment? How often? How would they do it? What was in those days? What were the ratios they were trying to achieve?
Ratios, good question. I would be lying if I could remember way back then. But ultimately, the rule of thumb, we would never have more than 30-35% TRCs in the business at any one time, training recruitment consultants. Yeah. It then becomes a little bit unhealthy. So we push ourselves as much as we could up to that point. So whatever the team, the division, the office needed at that point, we would have an influx of trainees that would go into what we then, back in the day, called a boot camp, which was a really strict 4 weeks worth of training to get them, prepared for doing the job. So the idea was, when they come out of the boot camp, you as a manager, you've got something that's, half polished, ready to go, and you've kind of just got to pat it in the right direction a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So I call my branding training the personal brand boot camp, because I believe in that style. I believe it's a really good, intense way of learning. And but you need enough. You can't have a boot camp in a day. It needs to be over a period of time so you can put theory into practice, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So would those boot camp members be already in a team and be half learning, half doing, or would they be in a training environment for that month and all the work they do is a training style?
Mainly learning for the first week, so classroom-based training, and then it evolved over time. So back when I was in London, what would have happened then? I think it actually would have been up to 2 weeks classroom training, actually. And then week 3, you would start picking up the phone. But during that point, you would be doing that still with your peers in the training camp, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
After week 3, week 4, depending on the size and the ability of the trainees in question, then they would kind of get released into the sales floor, which is when they'd sit with their team leads and managers, and they'd learn on the job.
Do you know what percentage of people you hoped? Like, what was the rule? How many people were going to make it? Like, was there a line that you'd say 50% make it? Or?
An unwritten rule, you'd hope at least 50% were going to make it through, right, and make you some money somewhere along the line. If you could do that, then you were laughing, right?
Yeah. Because I remember we were tiny compared to that. I mean, 50 employees taking on groups of 5 and 10.
Yeah.
I used to feel it when people didn't work. Like, I felt it. And my boss was like, Steve was ex-Hydrogen, bigger. I think he was either at Robert Walters or Michael Page. Robert Walters. And he was like, you've got to accept the reality of those ratios. And you've got to be, you've got to be okay with that. So if you know you're bringing in 10 and 4 are going to make it, then you're going to get 20. You can go and get 20 or 30, and you're going to get 12. Or like, it's obviously you always trying to make that number better, but you've got to accept it. And I don't think I at the time was mature enough to get it, and I struggled with that.
I think junior leaders do find that quite challenging because they have a more personal connection to the people that they're hiring. They sympathize with them, probably have more in common because they're of a similar age. Maybe they found something in common during the interview process. And of course, if you're a junior manager, it's a tough conversation to tell someone it's not working out, or they need to do more, or they're not sort of, pulling their weight, so to speak. So I can understand that, and I think I probably remember feeling like that myself at one point or another. So as you mature, you kind of realize that's how it's got to be.
You got to get it. So your international experience then started to kick in, and you said you went to Asia, and then you spent most of your time in Germany, right? So we quickly just go over the Asian bit first. What was that about?
Similar sort of thing, and people laugh about this, like friends from the business and family and stuff like this. Again, my boss back in the day, he was happy with everything I'd done in London, came along, got a call, Kevin, I need you to come and see me. And it was just an identical conversation to the conversation about London. This time he'd invited me to his house, so I went to his house one Saturday morning. Says, look, it's been great. Gonna say again?
Is this Sean again? Or?
No, this is not Sean. This is a fella called Phil Bauer. Who he moved on after the 2016 deal. He's retired, living the life in Spain by all accounts. Absolutely good on him. And so invited me to his house. Kevin, happy with everything you've done, etc., etc. I need you to go to Singapore. By that point, Singapore had started running into a few challenges, as had Melbourne, with regards to productivity. And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, when do you need me to go over? And he's like, next week. And I was like, are you serious? I've never been to Singapore. I've never been that far east in my life.
Did they not need a visa or something to live there? Or was he just saying
I can't remember now. I can't remember. There would have been a visa requirement to sort of live and work there, but it was like, right, I need you to go on the plane next week. So within a week, my bag was packed, and I was waking up in a hotel in Singapore, getting ready to go and introduce myself to my new colleagues out there.
I'm interrupting today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Atlas, the only AI-first recruitment platform on the market. Now, imagine you had a genuine assistant following you around, listening to everything you said on the phone or in meetings, and then doing all the admin for you that you don't want to do. Well, that is actually possible now through Atlas CRM. It's the only platform with fully integrated AI, so there's no note-taking whatsoever and no need to buy any additional software. Now, they've got so many amazing features. Specifically, you can search beyond CVs. Okay, so all your interviews are added to the powerful search platform. And if a candidate mentions their experience on the phone or whatever, let's say they use React JS, JavaScript, this will be searchable for you if you use the keyword React. So it's not just searching CVs, it's searching every single communication touch point you've had with that person ever. Go to www.recruitwithatlas.com/therag and sign up on that page. All right, let's get back to the show.
Left the London contract division behind, and that was that. So
let's go into what year is this? Can you remember?
This is 2014, 2015, something like that.
So how do you position this with your fiance that you've you've literally been in London 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And then, and that feels, when you're from Manchester, Newcastle, the north, that's still far enough, right? Bloody counties, right? Get yourself home. And then now you're like, oh, I've just gone a bit further, love.
Yeah, exactly.
How did that go?
All right. Look, I'll be honest with you. When we had that conversation about Singapore, I said, listen, I'll do it. Yeah, it's not something I wanted to sign up to. It's not something I ever thought about. But fuck, you need me to go there next week, I'll go. But just look after me. You know what I mean? He said, listen, you will be looked after. We'll take good care of you. Don't worry about that. So, I went home to the missus and I said, listen, got something to tell you. We're moving to Singapore. And you're like, you fucking joking. No, I'm not joking. When we go next week. And that was it.
She got a job in Newcastle.
She had a job in Newcastle at the time. Great relationship with her boss. She didn't come over on the first trip. She came, I think, 2 weeks later. She had to work a notice and what have you. But she was well up for it. She was just like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
What did she do?
Off we went.
Or what did she do at the time?
Hairdresser.
Right. Oh, you said
Yeah.
So did she go and get a job in Singapore doing that?
No, she didn't. She was, looked after the apartment, made some friends and all that sort of stuff.
Sounds great.
Yeah, that market over in Singapore is a little bit different to the UK for one reason or another. It would have been difficult for her to get a visa on the wages that they were paying. It just wasn't worth it. My boss at the time, Phil, he'd asked me, does she want a job doing TA for us out of Singapore? And I thought, I don't know how I feel about working with my missus 12 hours a day and then going back to the same apartment and spending the weekend together. So we didn't do that. So.
No, I think I look at the life I've got with my wife now, and obviously, I don't know if I told you the story, but most people know, like, we dated when we were 24. We were both teachers with nothing. And then I went off to Australia and got a job in Melbourne, and she stayed in Sheffield and she was a teacher. I was a teacher. I got out of it. She stayed in it. And then she had 2 kids, and then she left teaching, opened a beauty salon, and I did all the things I've done. And then we got back together a couple of years ago. Right. And so I've got a 8, nearly 9 and 10-year-old step kids and a baby on the way. And I look at her and I think, if we'd have been together pre-kids and had a proper, like I know she'd have done those things. Like, she'd have been so open to going away. But we've never. I'm always a bit envious, actually, of like the thought of saying to your missus, like, if they're up for it, come on, let's go and do it for a year. Well, what's the worst that can happen? It must have been exciting.
Exactly. And do you know what? Up to that point, I'd always sort of gone through my career thinking I'll end up in the US one day. So I didn't expect to go east. But we had an absolute blast. I was in Singapore 3 weeks of every month, down to Melbourne for the last week of every month. And it went something like that for just under 2 years, right? So what a great life, what a great opportunity.
And in terms of what you did there, again, I don't need to go into I want to go into the Germany bit in a minute. But how would you do? Was it a similar situation? Was it
similar sort of situation? I think it was fair to say at the time the APAC side of the business felt a little bit neglected. There's different drivers over there economically. It's a very fragmented market. It's hard to penetrate sometimes when you're just product aligned, and it just needed some life breathing into it. So similar sort of thing to what happened in London. Try to get a bit of energy into it, try to speak to the people, understand the people, lead from the front, celebrate the small things, and all of that sort of stuff. And away it went. It snowballed again. So.
You're like the Pep Guardiola of recruitment, you.
Yeah, I've been called Jose a couple of times. So,
yeah. Sean Dyche, maybe.
Yeah, Sean Dyche. Yeah, that's mostly it. Sam Allardyce.
Yeah. It's all about keeping people. It's not about keeping people in the league. It's about higher performance, right? But again, that's another thing. I was like, when I was leaving Venquis, and I know I introduced you to my old boss recently.
Yeah.
I was running their contract business, and he was definitely pushing me down the Guardiola. That he'd literally just come into Man City in 2016, and he's like, he's like, you are going to be, you could be our Guardiola, basically. You could be that guy there, and you could go and open an international office, and you could go abroad, you could go and work for someone else. And I think if you really master that management in recruitment, you can go and have this international, do 3 years, 4 years, 5. Whereas when you're a biller, and you're a really good biller, and your market actually changes you to a location or an industry that you can't leave. So I had, I was really, I remember being a bit, a bit torn as to which direction to go in. I ended up quitting and doing something completely different in the end. But did you ever think about that? Being like, actually, the role I'm in now, was that a strategic thing that this role allows me to have a bit more flexibility over a career, and I can go and pick up a new job here, and I can. Were you conscious of that?
No, I'll be honest. I wasn't conscious of that at the time. I think I've picked up bags and bags of experience with FRG now. I feel like I'd be confident I can go into any organisation and add value, no doubt about that. But no, at the time I probably didn't, because I was just looking at the whatever it was that was in front of me at the time and enjoying it. Because of the the nature of the beast, how quickly FRG grew, and what the business was trying to achieve. You don't really get a chance to stop and think too much. You just play forward and roll with it, right? So, yeah. But it's the same everywhere you go throughout the world. The recruitment process is the same. People will tell you it's different here and it's different there. Yeah, there's some nuances, but generally speaking, it's it's the same thing, and the skills are transferable, right?
100%. So when you came to Germany,
yeah, when
was that? And let's go into a bit more detail about that, because that was a 6-year play.
Yeah. So out in APAC, just under 2 years, our little boy came along, Alistair, who's now 7, will be 8 at the end of this year. That wasn't planned or expected. So that's what drove us to come home. We didn't have any family insurance. We didn't have a support network over there or anything like this, And how's this going to work with me going between Singapore and Melbourne? It wasn't. So we headed back, and so I found myself back in the UK. There's a period, I made myself miserable because I was still responsible for what was going on in APAC. I'd picked up some teams in the UK, and I'd even picked up a team in New York, which needed a bit of help and a bit of love. So I was doing the 3 things, and I was waking up on a morning speaking to people in Australia, then going to Singapore. Then I had a European team that I was dealing with, then a team in the UK. And then when all that was finished, I had a couple of calls coming in from New York. And at the time, it sounded great, right? I've got all this responsibility right around the world. But the truth is, I just made myself miserable. I couldn't switch off, because the emails were just 24/7 and calls and so forth. So I did that for a bit, and I drew a line in the sand with it. I said, look, I can't do this anymore. Not enjoying it. And we got into a conversation about me going to the US to open up an office in the States. So that conversation had started. My boss has changed at this point, so I'm now reporting into Zoe Morris, who I introduced you to.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
You've set up a call with Zoe, but brilliant person, very, very good at what she does. So I'm now reporting to Zoe. We had a brief conversation about the US, and then she said, look, Kev, how would you feel about jumping over to Germany for 6 months? While we sort everything out in America, we could do you breathing some life into that over there. So there I go again, off to Germany.
Again, what was the conversation like this time? You got a kid now. It's slightly different.
I've got a kid now. Yeah, it was, but it was similar, because it was only supposed to be a 6-month gig. We were going to go to the US anyway, so what's the difference? Nice little project for 6 months.
Is your son before he's at school as well? So there's a bit of flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. So he's easy to bring with us. The conversation was much more pleasant with Zoe, I would say, than Phil. Phil was more like telling me that's where I'm going, whereas I was like, "Can you help me?" And so off I go to Germany. How many people were there? A dozen or so, but they were struggling to find any sort of rhythm and get things off the ground.
Were they Germans? Were they all locals?
Yeah. Mainly Germans. One Irish fella who's fluent in German. So got myself over there, and that started to go well again pretty quickly. So I think that surprised a few people just in terms of how quickly I turned that around and got that up and running. And so Zoe turned around to me and said, "Look, Kev, do you want to stay there till the end of the year? And we'll just park the America chat." So we did. So stayed there till the end of the year, and it just went like that. I just kept saying, "Yeah, I'll do another year. I'll do another year. I'll do another year." 6 years later. So there you go.
So let's talk about it. So you go in as a dozen.
Yeah.
And again, similar situation.
Yeah.
Performance, bit of lack of trust and consistency.
Yeah.
Was there anything different you did in that one than in London and APAC?
There wasn't. I'll point out there wasn't a lack of trust in Germany. The Germans were absolutely fine when I arrived. They just, I think, struggled to find the right markets to work. Processes weren't up and running. They were struggling to have conversations with clients for one reason or other. Probably hired a couple of people that they shouldn't have. All of that sort of stuff. So it wasn't as big a task as what I had it in London or Singapore, but challenging in a different way. so yeah, just got that sorted and got that pointed in the right direction and started to build a bit of an infrastructure to allow for that to grow. So
did you notice any? I know you say the recruitment process is the same, but again, I'm going off experience from.
Yeah,
Venquist had a German office. Plus, when I interviewed Austin Fraser, who've grown really well in Germany, Pete, the founder, said to me that actually they did. He said they did have to adapt their style in Germany. Like the BD approach that was quite aggressive in the UK wasn't really going well. Like they weren't getting the right responses. They had to become more German. They had to learn and culturally adapt. Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, look, there are some differences, right? Not major differences. It's still recruitment at the end of the day. It's jobs and it's candidates, and the aim of the game is to bring the two parties together. What can I say about the German recruitment market? Bags and bags of opportunity there. Yeah, unemployment in Germany is one of the lowest in Europe. I think it's in the bottom three, along with Poland, Malta, maybe the Czech Republic. I'm not too sure, but the unemployment and the need for candidates is right across Germany. Every industry, every skill set, you name it. Right. The education system in Germany doesn't meet industry's demand. Right. And people are retiring younger, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge pressure on the workforce. So it's a very job rich market. Okay. So going out and picking up a job in Germany is actually really, really straightforward. Identifying where the good jobs are and the worthwhile jobs are, that's the challenge. Yeah. So you've got to be switched on to that. From a process standpoint, HR are often very much involved in the process out in Germany. They play a really, really key role. Yeah. So I can imagine if you're a British recruiter going into the German market, things are flipped on its head a little bit. The German market's not as competitive. You've got access to loads and loads of jobs. Your challenge now is trying to find out which are the good ones, which are the not so good ones. You're probably dealing with HR more than you ever have. The process is a little bit longer. Yeah. But other than that, it's pretty much the same,
And so. What did you? I guess what's your methodology for qualifying jobs then? How would you go and look at when you're not even the expert?
Yeah,
like you're not the expert in the German job market, so you're going into a team and saying, right, well, let's go and evaluate your jobs. What's your criteria for that?
Who basic sort of stuff. I feel like I'm patronizing you because you know the answer, right? But
I know, but I love. There's a lot of people out there. You'd be surprised, mate, who run successcul recruitment fucking companies and don't do this stuff. Like they don't do it, or unsuccessful companies who are listening, they're struggling and they're like, "Fuck me, I'd want to hear this." Like, so we
fair enough.
Break it down.
It's who are they speaking to? What's the reason for the need? What's the impact on that person and that business of not filling that requirement in that time frame? I think that's a big one, which I did a lot of training on with the guys to make sure that they understand that. Because if there is no impact on the individual that you're speaking to or the business, how urgent are they going to recruit for that position? They're probably not. So understanding that is really helpful. Neil Rackman's spin selling is a really useful tool to help with things like that in Germany.
Situation, problem, implication, need, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So understanding that and utilizing that particular methodology can be quite key. And getting any sign of commitment that you can from them up front, and a commitment to engage not just with HR but with the line managers is also a good telltale sign. If the hiring managers, the HR lead, for example, is just, look, there's a job spec, that's the salary, go and recruit to that. In Germany, it's probably not enough, right? Because there's millions and millions of those jobs out there. You need to go a level deeper than that and just try and push the client and test their commitment to work with you to get the job filled.
How did that grow to 180 people? Like most companies don't grow to 180 people ever. Never mind in 6 years. In a foreign country. Like, what would you say is the main ingredient for that rocket ship growth?
I think firstly, what I will say is I can't take all of the credit for it, right? Because I was blessed with a good team, a team that I was able to leverage from the UK. Previously, FRG had some German speakers in Newcastle, had some German speakers in London, so I was fortunate enough to be able to take a couple of those guys over with me. So that gave me a bit of a platform, and they'd been successful in their roles previously in those locations. So getting them on board and getting them into Germany really, really helped. I would say getting the business from sort of 12 to 50 heads, that was brilliant, right? Because just left to my own devices, go out there, have fun, build the business. You can create that sort of siege mentality, and everyone's having fun, and they're going out and they're having drinks together on a Thursday and a Friday evening. It was an absolute blast. That was really straightforward. I think the hard stuff comes when you start chasing the 100 headcount and then getting over the hill and beyond that. And that's where we needed a really robust support team, central services team, to help us, from a training standpoint, from a HR standpoint, all of that sort of stuff. We needed to make sure that the leadership structure was in place and people were in the right places to accommodate all of the headcount. But I remember back to your podcast with James from Storm, similar sort of thing. We'd have these training academies take place, sometimes 20, even 30 a month. At one point, I remember when we really started to, put the pedal to the floor to get Switzerland moved forward as well. We had 30 people across the DACH region coming in on a monthly basis to try and drive us forward.
Did your P&L have to pay for that, or was it invested centrally from the UK?
Invested centrally. Yeah. So that makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah, so regardless of your performance, it's fucking coming.
Yeah,
people are coming.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got to keep an eye on the budget, right? If you way off your budget, the business is not going to continue to pump heads into it. Why would it? But at FRG, everything is kept super simple. You've got your budget to work off of. All your P&L responsibility will sit centrally in the UK, and something that you don't necessarily have to worry about too much.
Right.
So yeah, there you go.
What was life like for you then? So you said, 6 months was easy to get across with the missus.
Yeah.
And then every year you're like, another year.
This is so.
How did that go? Did she stay with you all that whole time or not?
Yeah, for the first couple of years, yeah, and then unfortunately, my old man passed away unexpectedly.
Sorry to hear that.
In 2018, and Natalie was brilliant. She was a superstar. I mean, FRG were great as well. Zoe was fantastic. I think I had sort of 6-7 weeks back in the UK to try and get my head around everything and to deal with my sister and my mum and all that. Getting everything in order. It's difficult, particularly when it comes all of a sudden and it's unexpected. So my mum was still having a hard time of it, and there was still a lot to sort out. And Natalie, to be fair to her, said, "Listen, I'll stay back in the UK with your mum if you want. Go and get yourself back to work in Germany." Because my mum sort of lives in the middle of nowhere, really, in comparison to where our family is, other family. Mm-hmm. So Natalie's brilliant. Stay with my mum. I went back to Germany myself, and that's when I started commuting. So I was Monday to Friday for the latter part of it, and then of course COVID came along, so I was working remotely from the UK. And then when restrictions,
so
I was back traveling.
Just to go back for a step there. So you said you're commuting to Germany. So what was that? A Monday morning flight and like a Thursday night flight or something?
Yeah, but Monday night, Friday afternoon, Monday morning, Friday afternoon,
right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Where from Newcastle straight to Germany? Where were
they used to do flights direct to Berlin at that time.
Is that where you were based, Berlin?
Yeah, I was based in Berlin. I think it was 2018. We set up Cologne. I could fly to Dusseldorf from Newcastle, train down to Cologne easy enough. And then 2021, we set up Frankfurt again. I could get there easy enough from Newcastle. But annoyingly, they did stop the direct flights to Berlin from Newcastle after COVID, which is frustrating. Yeah, so I found myself in Cologne and Frankfurt a little bit more often than Berlin. But, it's probably where I was needed a little bit more to move the headcount on. So
you going into COVID then?
Yeah.
Where were you in Germany, or were you I suppose you were coming over the week? Was it obvious when you were back home, like I'm gonna have to stop doing this, or were you stuck out there for a bit?
No, I wasn't stuck out there. I was in the UK, and I remember one of the guys calling me and saying to me, "Listen, Kev, shit's about to hit the fan with COVID over here. Like, the way the German press are talking." So I wouldn't read the German press every day. Do you know what I mean? I would look at it once a week or something like this, and there's bits I could understand, bits I couldn't understand, and I'd have to translate and so forth. But he's saying, "Look, shit's going to hit the fan here. Like, the guys are scared about going to the office tomorrow. I don't think anyone's going to turn in, And I was thinking, shit, what am I going to do? So I remember ringing Zoe and blah, blah, blah. And Marco Glasner's now the MD for Germany. He was on board at that time. And we had to quickly adapt like everyone did, right? And, get everyone a laptop and tell them that they could work from home and so on and so forth. But when that kicked off, I was in the UK, so I didn't get stuck out there. So our old house, which I had before we went to Singapore, we were back in there because we kept a hold of that, right? We rented that out when we were away.
Right.
So we were back living where we were originally.
So a business like the Frank Group, which I imagine was, highly sales focused, quite aggressive, phone-based, in the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
What was the perception of fucking working from home? I bet that was a bit taboo for you guys, wasn't it? I bet it was a bit.
You know what? I personally didn't like it. I thought it was quite difficult. I'd much rather be in the office around the people, at least see what's going on. The pessimist in me was like sort of scratching my head, like, what are these guys doing? What are those guys doing? And you spend all day looking at the system, sort of checking up on people at first because you don't get used to the new way of working, right? So personally, I found it quite difficult and quite frustrating. But I think my management team at the time, I think they did a brilliant job because the numbers sort of managed to sort of stay pretty much in line with where we wanted them. And I think, looking at FRG globally at the time, Germany was a region that was probably less impacted than some of the others. Yeah. So I think that the team there did a great job and adapted really, really well. So
it's before the pandemic when you went through the sale in 2018, right?
The last sale was 2016. Yeah, that was
2016. Sorry,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, you make a lump of cash.
Yeah.
You invested it in property. Did it? Be honest. Like, did it ever cross your mind to go and just start, Kevin Frater recruitment and do your own?
Yeah, of course it did. I think that goes through everyone's mind at one point or another. But I just never have, and I don't know if I ever will. I enjoyed what I was doing. I really did love the company, and I think the company changed my life. Like I said, from a financial standpoint, when I arrived at FRG, I had a big mortgage in London. This is prior to sort of selling my half to James. I had credit cards which I owed money on, and all of this sort of stuff. And I've left FRG with a good stack of cash in the bank, 16 properties, and a load of other toys that I wouldn't have otherwise. So.
Yeah,
It's FRG's been good to me. I can't. Yeah,
I don't know if it's the Northerner in you, but you do make everything sound simple, Kev. Like, you're just like,
really?
Yeah, like, because
believe me, it hasn't been simple, and I've probably gone through the same challenges and pain everyone else has in the industry.
But do you think people do overcomplicate things as well?
I definitely think people try to overcomplicate recruitment, and I think the most successful people are the ones that just keep it simple and are laser focused on what they need to do within the day. Do you know what I mean? Too many people, I think, get distracted easily. I've been guilty of it myself in the past, when I was recruiting and I was a junior leader. But, if a junior recruiter can learn the art of discipline and just be focused in what they're doing, just keep everything simple, I think the sky's the limit. You don't have to be the best salesperson in the world. You just got to follow the process and do the basics well.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah.
So when did you really start to think, you know what, like, I'm coming to the end of my time here? Like, what was the signs for you that it probably was going to be you were going to part ways with the business?
Good question. I would say like Christmas time last year. The new budgets were getting rolled out for 2023. I was looking at the market, conversations with the missus. Since then I've had a daughter. She's now 2, and there's 2 kids at home now, and I just felt it was time. I remember Sean back in the day used to say to us, you should never stay anywhere more than 10 years. That's when you stop learning and you stop growing. And so that was in the back of my mind. It just felt like the right time. And I was itching for some time off, right? I think I'd let my my health and my fitness slide a little bit. So I was looking at that, thinking, right, I can get my head down and go and do some exercise. I can, just spend some time at home, and there we go.
So you decide at Christmas and you're out in January. Was that the reality of how quick it turned
around? Pretty much, yeah. The FRG were good to me in the sense that they were flexible with regards to my notice period and all of that sort of stuff. I think I gave them a professional handover, and it was fairly straightforward.
Again, the beauty of your role was probably you relied a lot on other people to do things. Right? Yeah, you weren't the man. You were not the driver of everything. So actually taking someone out like you is, relatively. There's going to be some feeling, but really, that you've empowered people well enough. They should be able to step up. That's the
I would say so. I think underneath me, I had a leadership team, a really solid leadership team that I think, would do equally well without me. That was also part of the decision-making process. I had no concern about the business falling down. Marco Glasner, I mentioned before, MD, he's now fully embedded in the business. Paul Hanley over in Switzerland, he's fully embedded in the business. The guys are maturing all of the time and growing into their roles. So, it did feel like the right time to walk away. I didn't feel like I was leaving anyone sort of high and dry or going to cause any problems for the business. And yeah, that was it.
Love it. So what has it genuinely been like taking a break? Like you've been working your absolute nuts off since you were 21 years old, right?
Yeah.
All over the world, and then suddenly it stops. No phone calls, no one.
Yeah. Do you know what? The first 1 to 2 weeks was strange, really, really strange. Like I'm checking my emails. I haven't got access to the company emails anymore, but I'm still checking my emails, like where they're all at. And I'm looking at my phone every 2 minutes. Weird, really, really weird. But I have to say, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I'm not in a rush to go back to work. Some of the people you put me in touch with, I've had some conversations with those guys, and I've been honest with them and said, look, I'm not going to do anything this side of the summer. I'll speak to you again in September and October, ready for next year, and that's still the plan. I've enjoyed it. Got myself in better shape. Got my head into the property business. Helped the missus with that a little bit. I'm out on the market looking for a couple of other investments, and that's where we're at.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds like you found what you needed. So again, the obvious question, I have introduced you to a few of my contacts. I'm not a rec to rec, and it's not, I'm not charging for that. I just think that you're a good lad and you've got an amazing track record, and there's people. But I know listening to this, you're gonna get inundated now. You're gonna get so many people like, hey Kev, love the rag, we want to chat to you about an opportunity. You're gonna get it, right? So let's just tell them now.
Yeah.
What is it for you? If anyone is gonna bother trying to poach you or chat you, what do you want?
I honestly don't know.
£1 million a year
salary. I don't know. I was sat with David Spencer Percival a couple of weeks ago in London, and he asked me that question. I said, "Look, sorry, David, I don't actually know what I want. I'm open to traveling again. I think the big box for me that's still not been ticked is the American one. So I would love, before my kids get too old, to go over there at some point, but I'm just not ready for that now. So I guess I think I need a company that's got plans to grow, got some ambition. There's some equity on the table that I can pick up. A company where I can make a difference, which I'm confident I can do that in almost all cases. And that's it, mate. I don't know. I've got to get on with the people that I'm working with. Of course, they've got to be my kind of people. Met some good companies, and all of those people I have no issues with. But let's see. I don't know. Let's see.
So would you see yourself working this year, or is it going to be a 2024 gig?
No, I think it'll probably be right at the back end of this year, beginning of 2024. Hopefully something local, something in Europe to begin with, and then, once I'm embedded into the business, if they've got an American presence, great. That keeps that door open. If they haven't and they wanted to set one up, then maybe I could go and do that for them. Something like that would be.
And why is America interesting for you? What is it that you're trying to scratch?
The market sounds great, very, very lucrative. There's no denying that. No, growing up, my dad had a couple of opportunities to go to America, and he turned them down, and he always regretted it. And it had always been in my mind. I'll go and fulfill, what my dad didn't do, and so on and so forth. So I'll end up over there one day. I'm sure I will.
Class.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy? You've been out in Florida recently. When you're there, do you feel like it's a place you can live?
Yeah, I need to find some alternative food though.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy the American diet, so I'd have to sort that out. But no, I absolutely, somewhere like Florida, Texas, where it's warm, near a beach or a pool, that would be an easy sell to the.
A bit like Singapore again, right? Just
something like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Same. I think that I wouldn't move anywhere away from England if it wasn't going to increase the weather. Living in Melbourne, I'll be honest, was probably the worst place to go and live in the fact that in Australia you do get decent summers, but it's just a fucking European city in Australia, really. Like so, you remember it, right? It's coffee culture. It's not about the beach, even though there is one, and we never went to it. And
Yeah.
I was like, why am I? That's why I left. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm living like I'm in Europe, and I'm 23 hours away. So I literally, if I went anywhere, it'd have to be drastic weather change, drastic lifestyle change. I've got, my kids, I've got 10 years till they get to an age where I'm not taking them away from their dad if we ever did anything wrong. I wouldn't do that. So we've got, I've thought loads about living abroad, and Dubai's always been the one for me that I've wanted to live in because I love the location of it. You can get anywhere, one flight anywhere. Weather's great until the weather's good here, and I can come home. I'm like, just perfect for me. And I know loads of people out there and tax benefits and stuff, but there's absolutely zero chance I can get anywhere with the lifestyle I've got right now.
Yeah, of course. No, I've thought about Dubai actually. That would be pretty cool. But I've never been. Maybe I'll get a quick trip into Dubai before the end of the year.
Go and see it. Well, maybe wait till October, mate. Don't go before then. It'll be disgusting. It's 50 degrees right now. It's rank. It's not fun. Anyone who lives there will tell you the big sandpit is great for about half a year. Kev, a bit different for me this one. I usually it's all about founders and growth and where you're heading and in the business they're in today. I don't have any. I think you're the first guest who's technically unemployed, which is quite cool.
There you go.
But
what an achievement!
What an achievement! Now you've done some incredible things. I genuinely think you've got an ability to communicate really complex things, dead simple. You've clearly got an amazing track record. I hope people listening reach out to you and want to talk to you about opportunities. If you do, you got to let me know, and I will invoice them a hell of a lot of money. Just now, look, I'll get you back on in the future. Wherever you land, we're going to get you back on.
Let's speak again in a couple of years, and I'll give you an update on what's going on and how I found that. Maybe from the US or something like that.
I'm sure you will. Legend, mate. Thank you as always for listening to today's show. I truly hope that you got value from it. Honestly, it's the only reason I take time every week to ensure that my audience, you guys, future and existing recruitment owners, you're learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. And today's episode is brought to you by my business, Hoxo. I'm the CEO and founder, and we're on a mission to help brand recruitment agencies and their people better. I want to help people have the tools to stand out in the most competitive markets in the world. So I'll see you again next week with another episode. Catch you soon.